Lastly, let's agree that Washington, D.C. is a mess. It's going to take a long time, even if we do elect a Republican president. And by the way, I don't know about you, but I will enthusiastically support whoever the nominee is because the alternative is unacceptable. Live free or die! Live free or die! Anyone got any tea? Don't you know you don't exist? Don't you know you're not relevant anymore? I think they would be relatively surprised if they came out here today, and as I always like to say, whenever we hold a Tea Party event, we are always blessed with great weather. It's never rained on us. There's a reason why. My name is Jeff Chittister. I host a little show called New Hampshire Perspective on WGIR AM at 96.7 The Wave. I'm always grateful whenever I have an opportunity to come out and see all of you. It is always a bittersweet day that we come out here. It's a sweet day because I get to see a lot of friends and a lot of people that I've gotten to know over these last few years. Wonderful patriots like you. It's great company. But then I always remember why we're gathering here and the things that are going on that we need to keep clear focus of. So let's be mindful of that as we go through the day. You've got some wonderful speakers. And what I'd like to do right now, if you're able to stand, please do. If you're not, please don't worry about it. I'd like to introduce you to a wonderful person. He has become a mentor of mine over the last few years. He is gracious of heart and wise of wisdom and plentiful of puns. Ladies and gentlemen, for our invocation, Cliff Hurst.
You know, I just ran for vice chair of the party, and I was a little frustrated because I went to 31 meetings, traveled over 2,000 miles, and only got one vote. That's all I needed. Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we're so thankful for this beautiful day, and we're so thankful to live in a free country, but we know that our freedoms are being threatened all around us. And if there was ever a time that we needed your help and your guidance and we needed to be strong, the time is now. We've often said this is the most important election of our lifetime, but now we've really faced that. And we just pray that you would be with us and give us the courage and the wisdom and the strength to be what we need to be as Americans, to further the liberty and the work that we need to do to get a God-fearing president, a God-fearing governor, and to keep our House and legislature in the great live free or die state of New Hampshire. We pray this in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Amen.
All right, one thing I definitely would like to do before we get any further into this, you all know last week we had a tragedy in Greenland, New Hampshire. Oftentimes we take for granted a lot of the folks that are always out there taking care of us, providing security, our police force, our fire department, our soldiers. What I'd like to do is have you all stand for a moment of silence for a real American hero, Greenland Police Chief Michael Maloney. Thank you. All
through history, we have always had men and women that met the call. The brave men in our military who are still on the front lines today that sacrifice so much for us. And they are the ones that are responsible for our liberty. They are the ones, not the reporters for sure, they are the ones that provide us with the lives and the ability to live the lives that we so richly live now. What I would like to do at this moment is ask every veteran that's in the crowd today to please come down in front of me and face the people that you have been and have been defending. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the reason for your freedom. Now, we're going to show off a little, folks. And those of you who would like to hand salute, because that's what I will do, please give me a hand in reciting our Pledge of Allegiance. Hand salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, if you won't mind standing here another minute, we have a wonderful woman coming to sing the national anthem.
Please join me in the national anthem. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for Nancy Gerlich. Thank you very much, Nancy. Live free. So you always got to be ready for that. That's how we remind everybody. We want to make sure everybody hears us behind us as we go through. I hail from the great state of New Hampshire, whose motto is live free or die. And it speaks to the very essence of American exceptionalism. But as with the founding documents, some have lost sight of the true meaning that these words symbolize. The words and deeds of our founding patriots speak of a permanent liberty, an eternal gift that is embodied in the entirety of the New Hampshire state motto. For you see, many people beyond the borders of New Hampshire know live free or die, but few have heard the rest of General Stark's ode to liberty. Live free or die, death is not the worst of evils. Bold words from a simple patriot, or simple words that serve as a courageous reminder to our country's enduring strength. We are the modern sentinels, indebted to all the American generations that have come before us. It is our birthright to be the guardians of our shared divine liberty. Liberty guaranteed to us by the promise forged in our founding documents, secured for us in the War of Independence, and defended for us by the millions that have paid the last full measure of devotion, so that we would have an opportunity, no, really a duty, to preserve for our children, knowing the words of Ronald Reagan once gave us. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. Or one day, we will spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it was once like in the United States, where men were not free. We must be the new sons and daughters of liberty, the benefactors of all that is great of America, and wiser for our fewer mistakes. We must be always thankful for our blessings, committed to the simple virtue that individual liberty can only be certain when government is insignificant in our daily lives, knowing full well that smaller government means greater self-reliance. We must continue our unique tradition of helping our friends and our neighbors in need, whether they be next door or 1,000 miles away with our brothers and sisters in Israel. We must honor the strength of the family by preserving, defending the sanctity of marriage. And we must hold up high the simple truth that life begins at conception, recognizing that no man is free so long as another can interfere with the laws of nature and deny our fellow man that which has been endowed by them by their Creator. That these certain unalienable rights are not a choice, but are self-evident. America is the last best hope for the world. That if the torch of freedom is extinguished here, then the warming glow of liberty dies everywhere. I say to you that if you believe that America is the last best hope for the world, then it can only be so if we embrace and guard the enduring integrity that is our country's first principles. As in 1776, we must hold these truths to be self-evident. This is our ode to an American exceptionalism, a founding of our first principles, which include constitutionally limited government, individual liberty, free market economies, a strong national defense, and preserving traditional values. Ladies and gentlemen, we are patriots that must protect the future of our country. Because as you see the children before you today, that's what we're protecting our country for. Live free! Or die! We see that on our license plate every day, and I wonder how many of you just say, well, that's a nice place for that motto, but it needs to be everywhere. It needs to be internally in our hearts and in our minds as we go about our day. And each of the people who are going to be speaking today are such patriots as yourselves. What I'd like to do right now is a brief moment to recognize a few of the candidates that are come here to spend time with you. And the first one, of course, is a native son of New Hampshire. We know him very well. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for Ovide Lamontagne.
Are you here to celebrate freedom and liberty? Are you here to make sure that New Hampshire becomes the best state in the country to do business, to raise a family, and to live free or die? Right. It's great to be with fellow patriots here and to celebrate something else in addition to freedom and liberty. I'm here to join you in celebrating that Jack is back. You know, I had an opportunity to spend a little time in 2010 with a lot of you and with Jack, and what a great candidate he was for governor. He spoke about the essential principles, the core principles of our country with a passion and an eloquence that made me think when I listened to him and watched him, thank God he's not running for U.S. Senate. Jack did a great job as a spokesman for liberty and for the Patriot movement. And in 2010, I think we saw a renaissance underway. And it's our job to continue that renaissance of restoring in the people of this country and in this state the sure and certain knowledge that we are the sovereign over government and over this country. It is any power that government has comes from us, and that government is there to serve us, not to rule us. And that's what the Patriot movement is about. I now stand before you as a candidate for governor of the state of New Hampshire. And I'm a candidate for largely the same reasons that I ran for the United States Senate. I'm concerned about the distortion of the federalist system that our founding fathers created for us. I'm concerned about the power grab of Washington when it comes to education, health care, business regulation. I'm concerned that I was concerned that we are on a path, and we still are on that path, of destruction by crushing this nation with a debt we can't afford and we should never be passing on to our children. There's someone who's speaking the truth. We need new leadership because we haven't had leadership, or at least meaningful leadership, in Washington. And I wanted to go there to try to bring the government into the four corners of the Constitution. You know, that social compact, that agreement, let me get it out of my pocket, that I carried with me through the U.S. Senate campaign, I still carry now. Declaration of Independence, Constitution of the United States. This is a limiting document, not a living document. And it's supposed to protect us from government. And for too long, we've elected people in Washington who've ignored this Constitution. This is not an historic document, although it is historic. This is the compact, the contract between the people and their government. And now that I'm running for governor, not for U.S. Senate, I carry the people's contract and compact with the state of New Hampshire, the New Hampshire Constitution. And I'm running now for governor because I think if we're going to save this country, we do need to devolve power back from the federal government to the states and the people. And the best way to do that is not only to send people to Washington who are conservative, who are constitutional conservatives, but to elect people at the governor's office who are going to stand up to the federal government and say, get out of the classroom, get out of the hospitals of our state, get out of the business boardrooms of our companies. And I'll be that governor for you. I want to serve you and be an advocate for you. I'm embarrassed that New Hampshire was not the first state to bring suit against the federal government on Obamacare. We're the live free or die state. We know that this is a power grab that is unconstitutional and it's bad policy. The very first thing I'll do as governor is to direct the Attorney General of our state to join the other states in bringing an action against the federal government on Obamacare. Don't think for a minute that this case and this issue is going to be decided by the Supreme Court in June. This administration is bent on imposing this one-size-fits-all nationalization of health care, socialized medicine, and it cuts at the heart of who we are as a state and as a people. Now, I've read the Constitution of New Hampshire. If the Attorney General tells me I've been appointed by Governor Lynch, I'm a Democrat, I don't believe in bringing suit against the federal government. The Constitution allows the governor to bring an action on behalf of the state and the people, and as a practicing attorney, and a darn good one at that, I'll bring the suit myself for you. And the second thing I'll do is to work to make sure that New Hampshire is the best state to do business, to grow business, and to bring entrepreneurs to our state by deregulating New Hampshire. We need less regulations, not more regulations. And regulations is something I have something to say about as the Chief Executive Officer of the executive branch. So the second thing I'll do is put a 90-day moratorium on any new rules and regulations and force our agencies to go back to the drawing board and conduct an economic impact analysis and explain to the people, to the businesses, to the cities and towns of our state, and to me as the governor, why it is that we need to pass this new rule and regulation and how much it's going to cost us. Because every new rule and regulation is an act of legislation and ought not to be done mindlessly. It ought not to be done at all, frankly. We need to reorient the thinking in Concord as we do in Congress. The legislature should pass complete bills and not delegate legislative authority to the executive branch through its agencies so that you have unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats passing rules and regulations that have the force and effect of law. That is in violation of the constitutions of the country and the state. I want to work with our legislative leaders to make sure these bills are complete. But in the meantime, while we're passing rules and regulations, I want to hold our agencies accountable in a way they haven't been before, and then to try to deregulate New Hampshire. You know me as a fourth-generation New Hampshire native, son of New Hampshire farmers and mill workers and dentists. I've got granite in my backbone, and my wife Betty will tell you I have some granite in my head, because I am tough when it needs to be tough. I am principled, and you know that. But I'm also here to be a servant for you. How many of you are not Republicans in this audience? And don't be embarrassed or raise your hand. How many of you are like libertarians, independents, you're not Republicans? I'm a Republican and I'm proud of it. But when I go to the governor's office, I'm going to leave the party label at the State House door so I can be the people's governor, the business governor, and the cities and towns governor. I'm not going to apply a litmus test to any one of you or anyone who wants to access government and the governor's office. I want to be your governor who's there to serve you. And I want you to hold me accountable given the chance to serve.
We will!
Thank you, Omer. You should. You should. We'll publish an Ovid's Oath when it's time. It'll be a metric that you can evaluate my performance if you give me the chance to serve you. And then you can hold me accountable when we come up for re-election. In the meantime, I am proud to call Jack Kimball my friend, my supporter, and I'm proud to say Jack is back. God bless you, God bless America, and God bless the great state of New Hampshire. Thank you.
Ovid Lamontagne, you know you're from New Hampshire or close by when you actually can say Ovid's name correctly. Isn't it frustrating when you hear that people mispronounce? And I got to tell you, the couple right back here, let's just point them out right back here. It was a husband and wife team. The wife said, throw the bums out. And the husband said,
Yes, we're not husband and wife.
oh. I should have known any husband and wife team that worked in unison like that. That would be rare. But good job. So two people standing together up on the hill did a good job. Next candidate is running for Congress. There's something to be said about candidates who come into these events, because I can tell you that having worked these events before, a lot of candidates don't want to come here. So before we get to the next candidate, let's look at the people who have actually run for office, gotten in office, and are currently serving you and the legislators. If you are a representative or if you are a senator, go ahead and please stand up, please. So these are brave people. Warren, thank you. Excellent. Right over there, John, Bill. So these are people that represent you not only here, but also up in Concord, but today they sit with you as your neighbors. This next person, you knew him when he was running for Senate. He probably had some of the wittiest lines during the Senate debates. They were fun to listen to. But he's also a person who's been in business. He knows what it is to struggle in business. And that's important because all too often, unlike our founding fathers, we've sent a bunch of people to Washington that have no clue what it is to sign the front of a check and not the back of the check, and that's sorely missed. This next person understands that very well. I'm proud to call him my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, he's running for Congress. His name is Dennis Lamire.
Good afternoon. We the people are here. We the people. We are the government. The government is not above us. It owes its allegiance to us. Because we, the people, in order to form a more perfect union, bring forth the Constitution for a limited purpose, which is to serve us. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution names the powers that Congress has. They cannot go beyond that. We have too many people in Washington right now that think they can go into Congress, go into the Senate, and vote the way that they want. They voted for the extension of the Patriot Act, which took away our Fourth Amendment rights. The government can write warrantless searches, come into our house, and then make probable cause. Wrong. They passed the National Defense Appropriations Act, Section 1021 and 1022. Violate the Constitution because that takes away our Fourth, our Fifth, and our Sixth Amendment rights. We, the people, won't stand for it. We, the people, will hold those people that are in office voting that way accountable. And the only way that we can do that is vote them out of office. I have a passion for liberty. I have a passion for freedom. If somebody is in Washington and they vote away my rights, I am going to take it personal. I won't be personal about it, but I take it personal, and I'm willing to stand up and fight to get my rights back. I won't, let me just put it this way, I'm sorry. When I go down to Washington and a bill comes up for consideration, I will read it. And then I will put a test on whether I will vote for it or not. The first one is it constitutional?
Right. That makes sense.
The second one, is it good for America? And the third one is, can we afford it? And let me tell you, with $15 trillion in debt, we can't afford it. So my pledge to you is that I will go down, and when I take the oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution, I will do it. I won't lower my hand and then forget about it. I don't want it to be a piece of paper in the archives in Washington. I want it to be living within my heart and giving me directions on how to vote. Because we, the people, deserve better. We deserve our rights, we deserve our freedoms, and I think the hook is coming up behind me. So I thank you for your consideration. I'm running for Congress in District 2. My opponent is Charlie Bass. And all your consideration will be appreciated. Thank you. And we, the people, will go to Washington together. Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis. Dennis Lamire, guys, he's going to be around here, so make sure you can come up and ask him questions. Don't forget to buy buttons, but you know what I did? As a benefit to you, I bought a few buttons, and I'm going to give them away. So, but what I want you to do is encourage, so I didn't take these for free, even though I kind of work here. So I'm going to throw the buttons out. Who hasn't got a button? Right back here. Quack! Yeah, I hope you all read the disclaimer. If I do hit you with a button, then sue Jack. All right, so the next candidate, Dennis, of course, was running for District 2 in Congress. This next gentleman should be very familiar to a lot of you. The man has been a patriot for a long time. He's been involved at the local level, at the state level, and he wants to continue that involvement. He's a fine kid from Seabrook. Ladies and gentlemen, running for the 1st Congressional District, Brenden Kelly.
Good afternoon. What a great day and great celebration of our country. Many of you people may not know me, but I'm in my 6th year as a selectman in Seabrook now. And I'm a Christian veteran libertarian who's looking to serve my country and restore our republic. Now, Jack is a good friend of mine, and he said he would squeeze me in here to talk here because I supported him when he was running, and now he's giving me this opportunity to speak to people. I didn't come up here today to make a big speech. I really wanted to introduce myself, and I'd rather answer people's questions than make speeches, so I'll let you know that I do have a table over here, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that anybody has. And also, next Saturday, we're having the Seacoast Area Freedom Expo, the first, and it's at the Exeter Town Hall. We'll be there from 9 in the morning till 9 at night, and hope some people will stop by and ask more questions. And at that event, I will be making speeches. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Well, I don't know what to think. The last two speakers, we had one guy who was actually going to read the bills and another guy who was going to listen to your questions. Good luck. I'm just kidding. So the next one, real quick, we do have one last candidate who is running for an important seat. We're holding on to the Senate. And when I say we're holding on to the Senate, we have great liberty-minded people up in the Senate right now. They could use some more help because some of them kind of forgot a few things. And so what I'd like to do is introduce you to this next gentleman. He's running for the Senate District in 20, John Adams Hikel.
Thank you. Thank you. That was... Since I got involved with the legislature over the past 4 years, I've taken the Constitution very serious. It's something that I never learned in public schools. It's something that I never really thought much about most of my young adult life. But now that I've read it, I realize just how critical part of American lives it is, and we should all learn this, and they should all be teaching it to all of our students in all of our schools. Article 6, something that and every day I pick this book up and I read a paragraph out. I read something out of it because it means so much to me at this point in my life. All debts contracted, and engagements entered into before the adoption of this Constitution shall be valid against the United States under this Constitution as under the Confederation. This Constitution and the laws of the United States which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made, or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land. And the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. The senators and the representatives before mentioned, and the members of the several state legislatures, and all executive and judicial officers, both of the United States and of the several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. This is what it's all about when we go to Concord and we serve the neighbors in our states and our towns and everybody that we represent. My name is John Hikel, and I'm running for State Senate District 20 in Manchester, and that includes Manchester wards 3, 4, 10, 11, and the town of Goffstown. I'm a resident of Goffstown, and I will be the second senator to ever serve in Concord if elected. I'm presently serving in my second term in the New Hampshire House of Representatives, and with the experience of being a small business owner, an auto repair shop owner for the past 25 years, I am ready to serve in the New Hampshire Senate. The Liberals in Concord, and I can't just blame it on them, but the Liberals in Concord in the 4 years before I was there, raised our taxes and fees over 100 times. In the majority, and left us with an $800 million debt from which we have just begun to recover from. And we did it, and we also balanced the budget. We spent no more money than we had, which was a new concept for the state of New Hampshire. For example, they left us with a state retirement system that's on the verge of bankruptcy, nearly $8 billion in unfunded liabilities. That's $8 billion. Money that we were going to have to come up with somehow. So we're working on the retirement system as well. That line of thought has to stop, and it will only end by removing those that want to continue the growth of government out of office by electing people like me and like-minded folks like us that want to reduce the size of government. I'm running for the state Senate because I am a true conservative. I support the Constitution of more personal freedom. I support the Constitution of smaller government. I support the Constitution of more accountability to we, the taxpayers. I am running for state Senate because I support your unalienable rights protected by the Bill of Rights. I support your 10th Amendment right of individual states' rights, and I especially support your Second Amendment right to bear arms, which will not be infringed when I am elected. It has been too long that our government has overtaxed, overregulated our businesses, and tried to run our personal lives. I'm running for the state Senate because I believe in freedom. I'm running for the state Senate because I have seen what overregulating has done to destroy and hold back free enterprise, prosperity, liberty, and our personal freedoms. Again, I am a small business owner. I see what this has done to my business over the past 25 years and the expense that it cost me and my neighbors. The liberals in Concord have tried for too long to restrict our personal freedoms. Many here today know my conservative principles, my love for liberty, my never-ending quest for freedom. I stand against social special interest and always will stand for what's right for my neighbors. My job for the next 6 months is to remind the liberals and the rest of the citizens about every tax hiking, every fee increasing, every nanny stating, every business killing, government growing, big spending, over-regulating, freedom-removing, anti-liberty policy that has ever burdened the citizens of Manchester, Goffstown, and the people of New Hampshire. Our friend, Senator Lou, who I think has been there much too long, but he has served valiantly, and we owe him something for being our public servant. But please, an early retirement this November would be justified. Ladies and gentlemen, I am running for state Senate because I want the people of Manchester, Goffstown, and New Hampshire to be the most prosperous and freest in the country, the best of the best, the example for the rest of the country to follow. I promise each and every one of you I will not say one thing to get elected and do something else once in office. I will stand against all special interests that want to limit your freedom. I will uphold my oath of office. I will promote freedom, liberty, and prosperity. I will serve my friends and neighbors with honor. My door will always be open and my phone will always be on. My name is John Hikel. I'm running for State Senate District 20, Manchester, Wards 3, 4, 10, 11 in Goffstown. I'm asking for your vote, your friends' vote, your family's vote, and all of your support. Thank you and enjoy this beautiful day.
Not yet, Omar. No, just a minute, Omar. Calm down. Jeez. All right. Everybody, a round of applause for Omar Ahern. He's the best patriot that we have. I'm telling you right now. There he is, right there.
Thanks, Jack.
You're welcome, Omar. And ladies and gentlemen, when I first started the Granite State Patriots, which was in 2009, actually a little earlier than that, and one of the first things I did, I got very upset at a lot of the liberals that were going downtown Portsmouth, that bastion of conservatism that it is. And I was very upset at what I was seeing. You know, they'd be there every Friday night, and there was this one lone Vietnam veteran that would be down there with the American flag, and there was a talk show that was on each night, and he called in one night, and I was listening to the show, and he said, my God, he said, I'm all by myself. I'm there alone all the time. And I thought, how terrible is this? That this man has the courage to stand down there all by himself. Well, that was a call to action. So I put the word out, and we decided, you know what, no more. We're going to show up. 90% of success is showing up. You've got to be active, and you've got to be present. So one of the first times we put it together, a wonderful lady named Nathalie Healey was there. And I met her. And at that point in time, she told me that her son Danny was a Navy SEAL, and how proud she was of that man. Nathalie Healey is here today, but sadly she's here as a Gold Star mom. You see, Danny Healey lost his life a few years ago. You all may remember the book, Lone Survivor. Her son was one of the SEALs who went in to try to save the SEAL team that was in trouble. They all lost their lives that day, including Danny. The largest loss of Navy SEALs in a day in history. When you talk about sacrifice, imagine being in those shoes. So today, I asked Nat to please come here and talk to all of you about the sacrifices that our fine men and women make for us, that maybe all too often we take for granted. I am so pleased to introduce you to my friend, Nathalie Healey.
Thanks, dear. Thank you so much. Good afternoon. I have to tell you, it's an honor to be here with all of you. I've been away for a while because I've been running a new business, and that's been all-consuming. And I try to keep an ear on what's happening in the world. But when Jack called and said, "Do you want to come up and speak?" I said, of course, because we started out on Market Square in 2003, in March 2003, showing our support for the troops. And since then, the things that have happened, we've won a war, we almost lost it, we won it again, we won another war, it started up again, it's still going on. My son got killed in 2005, I ran for Senate in 2006, lost. Jack ran for governor, lost, and we got our first black American president. This has been an amazing decade. At any rate, by the way, I'm not running for anything except for cover if Obama wins. But anyway, I'm here to say a few things about the sacrifices the military makes and to what we can do to support the military and to make sure that America, our country, stays strong. First, I want to tell you a little bit about Dan. How many have read the book, by the way, Lone Survivor? Okay. Oh, okay, so you're familiar with it. And how many saw the movie Act of Valor? Thanks, Karen. Yeah. And anyway, so that kind of gives you an idea of what the SEAL culture is like. And at the time of Dan's death, he had been a SEAL for 15 years, which I actually didn't know was quite an accomplishment in it of itself, that most men don't maintain that high standard for 15 years. But when 9/11 happened, Dan was in Pearl Harbor, which was a lovely place to be as far as I was concerned. However, he was frustrated by that because all his buddies were going over to Afghanistan and immediately deploying. But he worked in SDVs. That's Swimmer Delivery Vehicles. And if you saw the movie, they're the little submarines, 2- and 4-man submarines. And by the way, his cousin Peter was driving one of the boats in that movie. I just wanted to let you know. And at any rate, he was pretty frustrated with that. I was fine with it, and I didn't worry because I didn't think there was much call for submarines in Afghanistan. However, as a man who had trained all of his adult life as a warrior, he wanted to go, and within a year, he found a way around it. So when he called me in late 2004, early 2005, telling me that he was going, I wasn't all that thrilled, but that's what he did. He was a warrior, and he left his family. He has 4 children, and went over there and sacrificed his life for his men. I'm told, I don't know if a lot of people know this, there were 2 helicopters that went up that day on the rescue mission. He had originally been in the second one, and when they refueled going up the mountain, he got out of the second, and knocked somebody out of the first helicopter, and he told them, I'm going up first because those are my men, and my face will be the first they'll see. And sadly, it probably was, but it wasn't on this earth. And since then, the support and love of the community and the country has been amazing. I want to tell you something. Chief Maloney's mom, Joan, is a friend of mine, and she was there when my Dan was killed. So I went to see her last Saturday with a big lug of macaroni and cheese to give her that and hugs, and she greeted me with, you know. And of course I knew, and I knew what the family was going through. And I have to tell you, all of you here, because I know all of us had our sense of security ripped out from underneath us during that horrific time. But the support and the love of the community and the country holds you up during that time. It's just hard to explain. But I can tell you, it's like being carried on the wings of angels. And it's such a blessing. And the Healey family thanks you, and I know the Maloney family thanks you as well. But I also wanted to touch on a couple of quick things. Because of Dan and the mission that he was on and the book, doors have opened for our family in many ways. And one of them is that there's a foundation called the Navy SEAL Foundation. And they have a dinner every 18 months in New York City and raise millions of dollars for the children of the men who have been lost. And it's a wonderful thing, scholarships to college and laptops and things that ease their lives and help to try to fill the void. And we go every time as the guests of various Wall Street firms. Okay, this last time, my friend Sue Peterson, who a lot of you know, she went down with me, and on the way down, I said, please, of all the Wall Street firms, I don't want to be a guest of Goldman Sachs because of 2007 and 8 and all that. But God has a sense of humor. So, of course, we were seated at the Goldman Sachs table. Now, the least expensive meal at this fundraiser is $1,200. And I was there as their guest. But I really couldn't help myself because when they came over to talk to me and greet me, and I realized where they were from, I had to tell them how we felt with what they did when we gave them that money. So they were very nice to listen to me as I told them, and I thought what they did with that money and then gave themselves those big bonuses was like a colossal national slap in the face, and we didn't appreciate it. And they took it quite well, and who knows if it'll matter or not, but I knew I was putting that table for some reason. So at the end of the evening, when we were leaving, they came over to say goodbye, and again, they were very respectful. And so I said to them, we've spent this night honoring men who have given their lives for the country and who lived their lives for the country's benefit. And I'm asking that you go back to Wall Street and conduct your business in the same way, in the same manner. Who knows if that worked? who knows? But with Dan and God's intervention, I could say that. And because I'm a 12-son mother, I can get away with it. So anyway, as far as the military goes, I know a lot of you know that we grew up and the United States was the top dog militarily. And sadly, we're starting to lose our edge. China has more submarines. That's a terrifying fact. They have more submarines than we do. And they're building more, and we're retiring more. Yeah, that's true. That's true. But anyway, I know if Dan were here, he would be right with us on all the issues. Let me tell you, because that was his heart. And he loved his country, and he loved his family. And he was a man who was kind and generous, but he wasn't afraid to stand up for what he believed in. And he would have said, America has to stand strong against our enemies, because if we don't, who else is there to protect us? And if we don't protect some of the weaker countries in the world, what's going to happen to them? So we have to stand strong. I always think of this correlation. When he was in high school, he started weightlifting. And I know he did that because he considered himself a 90-pound weakling. And so in a couple of years, he built a pretty strong body. In fact, I used to worry how he'd get down the hall with his shoulders. So he had a younger sister, his little Irish twin, who had a mouth on her sometimes, and she would say things, and if anybody wanted to make trouble with her, they'd all of a sudden say, don't get into trouble with Jen, because Healey will take care of you. In all those years, Danny never had to fight, because they knew he was strong, and they knew he had resolve to protect his little sister. That's what America has to do. We have to be strong in so many ways, not just militarily. We have to be strong in education, and we have to be strong in the way our money works. All the way around, we have to be strong. We have to have the resolve. We have to serve notice to the world that we will remain strong, and we have the resolve to protect us and others. God bless America, and thank you. I got it. Thank you very much.
Nathalie Healey. Thank you, Nathalie. I know it was a fundraiser, but I'm shocked. A $1,200 dinner at a Goldman Sachs event. You think it was the Congressional cafeteria. All right, so this next guest, how many of you, I'm just going to ask you to raise your hands, live free or die? Live free or die, right? How many of you have ever gone on the internet to look up the Declaration of Independence? Raise your hands. Just wanted to read something. That's good. It's a good search. How many of you have ever gone online to look at the Constitution of the state of New Hampshire? Because you can hardly ever get it in print. So you do that. Well, guess what? The next person I'm going to introduce you to, you no longer have to do that. Because if you just walk up to this gentleman and talk to him, you'll realize the wealth of knowledge that he possesses. It's not book knowledge. It's patriot knowledge, and there's a big difference. Anyone can stand up and read the Constitution. Anyone can tell you they understand the Constitution, but you have to have a heart, and you have to have a brain for liberty to truly understand these documents. And this next gentleman is far humbler than you'll ever know. And he always gets embarrassed when I introduce him, because I met him about 4 years ago. And the way I like to introduce him, and I haven't changed it since the first time I introduced him, is this. That if this man were alive in 1774 and 1775 and 1776, he would be one of our founding fathers. He's that good because he has the heart and he has the intellect of a true patriot. Ladies and gentlemen, my dear friend, Representative Dan Itsi.
Thank you. The reason I'm here today is to remind you who you are. New Hampshire isn't what happens up in Concord. You are New Hampshire. And New Hampshire is the tip of the spear and always has been. People believe that Lexington and Concord was the first battle of the American War for Independence, but it wasn't.
Paul Revere's first ride was on December 13th, because the people of New Hampshire had paid a grievous tax to put shot and powder into Fort William and Mary. And General Gage had decided that he was going to reinforce that garrison. And so Paul Revere rode up to New Hampshire, and he apprised the Patriots of Portsmouth. And the Patriots of Portsmouth and surrounding communities arrived on December 14th, and they stormed the fort, 400 men. There were 11 soldiers inside, their neighbors actually, and they fired over their heads and surrendered the fort after a scuffle. The Patriots took all the shot and powder. And then the next day, they thought better of it. They went back. They took all the small cannon as well. It was those munitions that it is believed the British were marching after in Concord. And it is those munitions that were used by the New Hampshire Patriots, the New Hampshire militia, to provide the escape for the Massachusetts militia at the Battle of Bunker Hill. Now that following summer, there was a great division. You know, about half the people were with England, and half the people were with the colonies. And on June 13th, the people rolled a cannon up to the governor's door because he was harboring a royalist militia officer inside. And they were demanding that the governor turn him over to them. I don't know if he ever did, but the governor shortly thereafter retreated to Fort William and Mary and eventually became the governor of Nova Scotia. The people went on for that fall, and we began to have anarchy in New Hampshire, and there was nobody to punish the criminals. And you get to December 21st. Now, most people think of winter as a time to hunker down and close your doors and hide away. Not in New Hampshire. December 21st, the Congress of New Hampshire convened and said, we have to write a constitution. We have no government. And by January 5th, they were done. And I'm going to, just so you understand who you are, I want to read this, a portion of this to you. The sudden and abrupt departure of His Excellency John Wentworth, Esquire, our late governor, and several of the council, leaving us destitute of legislation and no executive courts being open to punish criminal offenders, whereby the lives and properties of the honest people of this colony are liable to the machinations and evil designs of wicked men. Therefore, for the preservation of peace and good order and for the security of the lives and properties of the inhabitants of this colony, we conceive ourselves reduced to the necessity of establishing a form of government to continue during this present unhappy and unnatural contest with Great Britain, protesting and declaring that we never sought to throw off our dependence upon Great Britain, but felt ourselves happy under her protection while we could enjoy our constitutional rights and privileges. See, they knew they had these rights and privileges out of the English Bill of Rights. And they saw their government step by step by step depriving them of what they knew was theirs. And when it went just that much too far, they said, no more.
No more! Once again!
Now, not only did we have that was the first constitution in an independent state, written constitution that limited government. First one in the world. The other constitutions happened after the Declaration of Independence. And then New Hampshire did something very unique in 1779. We had the first constitutional convention in the world. That's an important step because it was not the legislature writing the rules of government, but an independent body of the people that was going to restrain government. We did that in 1779, and it failed. We did it in 1781, and it failed. Finally, in 1783, they got it right, and we adopted it. It was the last constitution of the original 13 states. And it had every element of liberty that you will find in all of the others. None of the others have every element of liberty in them. I've done a spreadsheet. I'm an engineer. this is very important, it makes the New Hampshire Constitution, your frame of government, your Bill of Rights, the most comprehensive statement of American liberty, bar none. That's your government. And we are the only jurisdiction in the world that ever rejected a proposed constitution. We have a practice of standing up to government, and we still do. Modernly, we have HCR 6. We brought nullification to the national stage. This year, as was mentioned, we had a 10% budget cut. We now have established a committee on redress of grievances, so that when you are aggrieved by government, injured by government, you have a place to go to, and we must listen. We have reestablished a committee on constitutional review and recodification. That means we have a committee, it's actually my committee. Our purpose, one of them, is to get rid of laws. For the sake of getting rid of laws! It's important that you understand that we are not the seat of power up in Concord. You are the seat of power. Our Constitution says, all power residing originally in and derived from the people. Therefore, all the officers and representatives of government are their agents and substitutes, and at all times accountable to them, not just when it's convenient. This is really important. When I go up to Concord, it's not me voting up there. It's Fremont and Epping voting up there in my person. Now, I don't put my finger in the wind to see how they want me to vote. I have a sign over there. It says how I vote. Life, liberty, family, constitutions, states' rights. That's it. It makes it really easy. It's not hard. Now, this is a really important process. How many, Dennis, you're going to know. How many people know where the voter's guide is in the Constitution of New Hampshire? Everybody who knows where the voter's guide is, raise their hand. There is a voter's guide in the Constitution of New Hampshire. Part 1, Article 38. It was originally the last article in our Constitution. It states, and first I'll give you a word, recur. Recur means to read, study, and discuss. A frequent recurrence to the fundamental principles of the Constitution, and a constant adherence to justice, moderation, temperance, industry, and frugality are indispensably necessary to the preservation of liberty. Not a good idea. Indispensably necessary. You can't not know this document. If you do, it allows us goobers in government to do whatever the heck we please. You got to know it. You got to call us on the carpet. And they, the people, that's you, they have a right, the people therefore ought to have a particular regard for those principles in selecting their officers and representatives. So when somebody's running for an office, you should say to them, so, what do you think of Article 7? If they say, what's Article 7? You should vote for somebody else. This is your duty. You're the ones that are supposed to qualify the candidates. And who decides what's constitutional? Is it the judges? Is that their job? No. Doesn't say so anywhere in here. It's the people. You're right. And they, the people, have a right to require of their lawgivers and magistrates, executive judges, require an exact and constant conformance to those principles in the formation and execution of the laws necessary for the good administration of government. We aren't the government. We're the administrators. You're the government. We need you to stand up and hold us accountable so that we don't have the opportunity to steal your liberty. And to require us to stand up against the federal government to make sure that they don't steal our liberty. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless New Hampshire.
Thanks, Dan. One thing I always forget when we gather together as patriots is that when people mention the Second Amendment, with this group I always feel very safe. Who didn't get a button? So if I throw it this way, we're going to do pretty good over here. So there we go, not too bad. I can't throw a Frisbee at all. Yep. Don't forget, you can find out more about Dan, and Dan has some materials available that you can purchase over at his table. So please visit the tables. Don't run off right away. You know, the interesting thing about this is this. How many of you were born in this country? So you were born in this country, and when did you take your test to find out what a good American you would be? When did you do that? Anyone tell me? First time you voted? You didn't take a test, did you? You were granted this birthright. It's amazing, though. Don't you forget about it, don't you? You forget how precious a thing it is. And it wasn't until I served in the Army and I went over to Europe and they took me to a little fence and they pointed on the other side and they said, "Do you see that village over there? It's a fake village. People come and visit it and pretend like they're working, and prosperity and brand new cars, a bakery that looks open. It's a fake village so the illusion would be passed on to us." Of course, we knew the difference. And it was there that I realized how precious our country was. And I realized I didn't take a test to get what I got. I was fortunate my relatives came here and established really my birthright. But think about those people who come to this country voluntarily, who come here to be Americans. Think about that. That's what our country is. People come here, leave other countries to be with us. And our next speaker is such a person. Irena Goddard lived in a communist country. She knew what it is to live in a fallacy that is an existence that is sad and unfortunate. And as we move away from our Constitution, we move closer to that existence. And that's what we need to guard against. Ladies and gentlemen, to speak about living in a communist country, Irena Goddard.
Good afternoon, American patriots. My name is Irena Goddard, and I come to you today with a unique perspective and a serious warning. I came here today to motivate you to action. As you can tell from my accent, I was not born in the United States. I was born in communist Czechoslovakia. I lived in a little town called Ostrava, and I would like to share with you some of my experiences, some of my memories as when I went to school there. In my early years, we called our teacher Soudružka učitelka, which translates into comrade teacher. The curriculum was centrally controlled from Moscow, and individualism, in fact creativity of any kind, was discouraged. Instead, students were continuously immersed in the philosophy of classlessness and constant economic and social equality. The Soviet Union did everything in its power to ensure that every child in Russia, Ukraine, Hungary, Romania, and the other satellite countries received equal and adequate services in education, healthcare, food, housing. Virtually all aspects of our lives were dictated by the powerful bureaucrats. We were told it's for the general good. We were told they knew best. But history has shown that when a government has absolute control over the people, there's nothing to prevent it from misusing and abusing its power. The oppressive communist government of the USSR secured the allegiance of its satellite countries by fear and intimidation. It was one of the things that caused the fall of the Soviet Union. Central planners in Moscow, the bureaucrats in power, could not plan everything. The system fell under its own weight. Overreaching government control in order to achieve economic and social equality simply does not work. The only proven economic system that works is capitalism. Never be ashamed of that word. Capitalism does not mean big corporations in bed with big government, as some would like us to believe. No, capitalism means free trade. Free trade means trade without coercion. Free trade means government keeps out of the way and lets individuals make choices. Free trade means if you work hard and others appreciate your work, you get to keep the fruits of your labor. And then you decide how you want to spend it. I have seen firsthand the effects of collectivism, and I'm convinced that free enterprise is the best way to prosperity for everyone. Too many have bought into this war on wealth, decrying that wealth that comes from hard work and success, and demanding their fair share, or the redistribution of wealth. History is clear. Call it what you want. Communism, socialism, Marxism. It is all collectivism that stifles creativity, innovation, and ambition and lowers the standard of living for everyone. Our free enterprise system does not ignore those who are less fortunate, as critics argue. Free trade means that the economically disadvantaged can be cared for with true charity. The kind of charity that comes from willing people who care, by people who choose to give their time and their money, whether because of faith, their feeling of responsibility in their communities, or the simple desire to help their fellow man. It is not charity when a taxman threatens to steal your home and throw you in prison if you fail to pay for it. When government tries to be charitable, the only tools it has are taxes and jails. If you expect to find charity in government, try asking the IRS to excuse your tax liability because you lost your job. And if the government were to gain even more control over our lives through broader regulations, we would not find them any more charitable or caring about the needs of the individual. We are at the crossroads in history of the United States. All of us, Republicans, independents, Democrats, need to clearly understand what is at stake here. Do we want an America where the government knows best and the bureaucrats decide where and how to spend our money? No! Or do we want an America where the people know best and we spend money directly? Bureaucrats and politicians have dumbed down this ideological crossroad agenda, hoping that people do not notice what they're trying to do, as clearly there's a big push for big government. If this is not stopped, the government will force all of us, the market, to hand over more of our hard-earned money so that the government can decide where and how to spend, instead letting the investor, the consumer, the people like you and me, make decisions directly with our money as what products to buy, what services to get, innovative companies to support, and thus letting real free trade and capitalism thrive. Let's be clear with the consequences of big government. It is reckless spending. It is intrusion into private businesses, our healthcare and education system. It has disregard for the United States Constitution. We are witnessing the erosion of freedom and slide toward collectivism. Just last week, there was a report that in New Hampshire, approximately 70% of our schools are in need of improvement. If you want to fix the schools, get the government out of education. Just like it should get out of healthcare, the automotive industry, the banking industry, and out of every other business. When President Reagan called the former USSR an evil empire, he was not exaggerating. Some may think I am making preposterous comparison, but I ask you, have you ever lived in a communist country? Well, I have. And I'm not overstating when I say we are directly becoming a communist nation. American patriots, make this rally not the end, but the start of your activism. Get involved now while there's still time. On the local level, participate in groups like the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers and the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance. Get to know your candidates. Ask hard questions. Go to your town and school board meetings. Talk to your neighbors. Spread the word. And help pro-liberty candidates get elected this November. And do not let it stop there. Ensure that your elected officials will not only slow down the slide to collectivism, but will reverse it. It is time to take back our freedoms. Thank you.
I think we should hold Irena to that pledge. I think we should get her to run for office, is what I think. I think she would be wonderful. Hey, how do you like Obamacare? The Supreme Court's going to decide whether we're going to get it or not, and we never know how they act, even with some of the fine people that are on that. But the reality is this, is that I want to share something with you. If you haven't learned, liberals don't learn from their mistakes. They're like Italian race car drivers. What's behind them doesn't matter. If it failed once, they'll just try it again and give it a different name. Think about it. They call themselves progressives now. They did that in 1920. Then they went to socialist. Then they went to liberal. And they've screwed those names up. Now they just come back to progressive again. And that's what we get. And the reality is that when we look about Obamacare is, wouldn't it be nice if we asked a doctor how to take care of our medical condition, both in the industry and with the people? And this next person, we only have 2 more speakers left, this next person knows something about medicine. He's a doctor. And you would think that Obama would have asked real doctors instead of a bunch of actors in white coats. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Joe Tarter.
Good afternoon. I was asked to speak about what I think is kind of a dry subject, but since I'm not in practice anymore and I'm not running for political office, I could, I think, bring some of the issues that are now we're dealing with as far as Obamacare affecting physicians personally, but it's hard to separate physicians personally from you and me as regular individuals because it's really overpowering us all. We're now facing in medicine the management of the medical practice by the government. And it's not new, it's just getting a lot more intrusive. It's affecting our physician population as far as practicing because they're leaving it in unprecedented numbers. The first year ever recorded this last year with more physicians leaving private practice and working for hospitals as salaried employees than in private practice. That's never happened in America before. We are anticipating, and it's been published by the American Association of Physicians and Surgeons, that they're estimating we'll have a shortage of 160,000 MDs by the year 2025. The Association of Medical Colleges has found that physicians are being driven from practice, and mostly it's because of the overregulation, partly because of decreased funding by the government of physicians in practice. Medicare basically rules the majority of physicians. Medicaid, the insurance companies are basically now controlled all by something that the AMA has come up with, and I'm going to go into that shortly, a coding system which allows or mandates that every office visit from every patient is coded. The coding goes to the government as well as to the insurance companies. And what happened this January 1st of this year, 2012, a new program went into effect called the Health Information Technology. It's commonly referred to as e-prescribing. Every time a physician prescribes a medication for you, it gets coded. All the doctors now have to comply with this, or they're penalized by a decrease in reimbursement from the government or from the insurance companies. I think it's 2% annually. The software packages for this thing is something between $40,000 and $80,000 per physician practice. But more interesting is what happens with the information. When a prescription is written, that information is sent to these government locations, but more so than that, everything on your charts, your weight, whether you smoke, if you have a gun in your house, your social history, your family history, all your personal information, everything's coded now. So this information is transmitted, and it basically ends up at a local health decision market, which in 2013, 2014 will come into play and be the end-all decision on whether or not you get that surgical procedure, stent, aneurysm procedure. If you're taken into the emergency room, they will theoretically approve or not approve your office or hospital visit. How that's going to work is yet to be determined, as is most of Obamacare, because we're not given the details of it yet. Nancy Pelosi's line about if you want to know what's in it, read it, makes sense, but it's 2,500 pages. I want to talk a little bit about the AMA and how the AMA has affected all of this with us, because the AMA does not represent the physicians. 15% of the physicians are involved with the AMA only, and in the last 2 years, 2010 and 11, 12,000 of them left annually. The AMA, though, has a good reason for being in existence. They have profited from this program called the CPT Management Company. This is the coding system that all medical issues have to be coded when they're sent in, and the AMA copyrighted the coding system. So the AMA owns it. Annually, the AMA changes it, so every year the physicians have to buy the software package current for their specialty. The estimate is that the CPT system is worth $72 million now. So the AMA, while not representing you or I or the physician community, is basically a very strong political party affiliate and supports Obamacare because of it. The shortage of physicians is estimated to get worse, but what they're doing is this last year, when statistics were formulated, they found out that more physicians leaving private practice, going to hospitals, becoming employees of the hospitals, and working as salaried employees or retiring early. The solution they've found to this is to train the new young medical students in socialized medicine. That's where they're headed, because that's an approved management of what we'll be dealing with down the road. The medical panels that are forecasted to be in charge of our care, coming in 2 years at the farthest, are going to be omnipotent. It won't matter whether or not you have private insurance. If you're Medicare age and have Medicare and also have private health insurance, or if you're under Medicare age and have private health insurance, it's not going to help you when it comes time for anything to be done that's, whether it's elective or whether it's necessary, it still will have to have the panel's approval. So while this is going to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court may make a decision on it, a lot of this is not new in medicine. A lot of this has been coming slowly. The CPT system by the AMA has been there for 10 years at least. I used to have someone in the office that was just responsible for keeping up with the CPT changes in just my field. And the AMA solved it by just annually submitting a new package to our offices for X thousands of dollars. They basically have us under sort of it's like a snowball rolling downhill. If the Supreme Court stops it, I think more will come. I don't think it's over. This is going to take a protracted fight. I could probably go on. There's no point. I think the message is clear, and I'm here to support all of our candidates because of it. Thank you.
All right, so we have one more speaker, and we appreciate it. Guys, don't forget to stop by all these booths. They're not going to break down. You guys are going to be able to mingle a little bit. Live free! Or die! Live free! Or die! Outstanding. This next person, once again, it's fun to be in New Hampshire. Most of you people know the people that we introduced to the stage, and some of you have learned some new people, which is great. To know that you're not alone. Isn't it nice to know that you're not alone as a patriot, that there are other people out there who are pushing the cause and helping us out? It's wonderful. Well, long before we all got involved in this, and long before we got into the battle, there were a few people who were in the trenches. There were a few people who put the bayonets on and were jabbing as much as they could. And this next person, who is just a blessing, not only to our state, but to our country, and a blessing to everybody that gets to be involved in her life. This next person, she and I had some fun last fall, so to speak. We joined a candidate as a campaign team, and that candidate went away. But we had a great time getting to know each other. And she truly is, if you can say a person is a living saint, and I know she's far too humble to admit this, this next person truly is. A great, great daughter of New Hampshire. Please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Karen Testerman.
Okay, save your watches, hold them way up high. Thank you, Jeff. And welcome back, Jack. We are so glad to have Jack back. And I want to say thank you to Jerry DeLemus for standing in the gap like a good, true Marine. We need those Marines. And quite honestly, I want to say thank you to all of our military, especially our guys overseas. We lose one or two every day, and we never hear about them. But they're out there, and their families are out there. And so, Natalie, thank you for all you've done to raise our awareness about what goes on. It's an honor and a privilege to be here, and I want to say thank you for coming out on this glorious day. It's beautiful. We've been totally blessed. But friends, it's time to stop letting the media and the left define our positions. We've got to stop accepting their criticisms. And if the media won't cooperate with us and put out our message, then we have to talk. And we have to talk a little bit louder. And then we need to get up on top of the rooftops and we need to start shouting. And what are we going to shout about? Let me tell you. Let's start with the mandate that we were given to Concord in 2010. We the people said stop the social engineering and the redefining of our families. We the people said stop the economic freefall. And we the people said stop the government intrusion into our lives. Under the leadership of Speaker Bill O'Brien, there have been major steps in the right direction. In time to shout from the rooftops. There are 10,000 more New Hampshire residents that are working today. There are 4,500 fewer people who are unemployed. Why? Because under Speaker O'Brien's leadership, our business climate is improving, and our business leaders are starting to gain confidence in the system again. This general court has reduced or repealed 43 of the 100 onerous fees and regulations that were imposed on us by the previous administrations. Yes, give them a hand. That's something to shout about. And here's some more real good news. According to the Tax Foundation and their rating on business friendliness, we're no longer at the bottom of the heap. We now are at 46 and we're still climbing. That's something to shout about. Under Speaker O'Brien, the House initiated and reinstated the law that parents should be notified when their daughters wanted to seek major medical treatment. The Senate agreed, and they managed to, this is a new thing. Okay. One there. And the House overrode the governor's veto. Yes, that's something we're shouting about. But friends, we're in a war for the heart and soul of America. And it's time that we started to do what is right and moral. I, for one, am sick and tired of those who duck their responsibilities with statements like, it's just about the economy and jobs. We can't raise the social issues because we'll turn off the moderates and the independents. Or we just don't have enough votes to put it forth. That kind of rhetoric is symbolic of a people without a compass. And it's utter nonsense, and it demonstrates weakness. Our founding fathers said, we hold these truths to be self-evident. We are endowed by our Creator. So let's talk about some of the fundamentals that our Creator commanded us to do. We get our direction from our Creator and not from laws or party platform. You shall have no other God before you. That means not Democrat, not Republican, not Libertarian, and yes, not Tea Party. We are not supposed to be the gods. We, the people, are supposed to honor the God of this universe. You shall not make for yourselves an image in the form of anything in heaven above, or the earth beneath, or in the waters below. You shall not worship them. It's time to stop worshiping the environment. God gave it to us to manage, not to worship. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God. And I don't know about you folks, but I am sick and tired of the coarseness of our daily dialogue. It's time to clean it up. Remember the Sabbath. Keep it holy. Families need time to be together, and our 24/7 society needs to take a day off. And to tell the youth athletic departments and programs to avoid Sundays. Honor your father and mother. Every child has both and deserves to be raised by them. The state needs to quit telling parents how to raise their children, whether it's in the medical area, whether it's in our education, or even where to learn to drive. The state is not our nanny. You shall not murder. This includes the 1 million unborn that we kill every year. Don't give my tax dollars to these death factories and tell me it's family planning. Hitler defined the Jews as non-human and slaughtered them. But aren't we doing the same thing with the babies created in the image of our Creator? You shall not commit adultery. When did cheating on your most solemn vow become acceptable? If I can't trust you to keep this kind of a promise, how can I trust you in other areas? If you are an elected official, why should I trust you? And why do we legalize the breaking of promises in no-fault divorce? You shall not steal. This includes the government stealing of my money through unnecessary taxes. It also means no more Ponzi schemes like the FRM, where our government watchdogs were supposed to be doing a job and instead left our friends with empty bags. You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. And yet, I did it too fast. And yet, when someone calls and tells you that, we laugh all the time when somebody tells us that you can tell a politician is lying when he moves his lips. And yet we have these politicians out here all over and we keep re-electing them. We can't do that anymore, folks. You shall not covet. This means you are not owed your neighbor's property or money just because they're successful. No more socialism. It's wrong. It's time also to quit living like those in Washington, D.C. If you are living off of credit cards or other people's money, it's time to cut them up and stop. If we don't want to become a cashless society, we have to start paying cash and live like no one else. Right. You know, Ronald Reagan said that there are no easy answers. There's simple answers. But we have to have the courage to do what is morally right. We're Americans not because of our blood relationships. We are Americans because we are united in our devotion to principles and values that are outlined in our Declaration of Independence. We're in a war, friends. Are you willing to fight for our liberties? Are you willing to do what is right? Are you willing to defend the design that was handed down to us by our Creator? Will you stand with me? Will you go out and talk? Will you be unabashed about your Americanism? Yeah. Will you talk about our accomplishments? Shout them from the rooftops. Let's do it. Let's do it right. Thank you. I want to make one brief announcement. I'm part of a group called Smart Girl Politics right now, and on July 14th, we are having an Armed and Fabulous Day down at the Londonderry Fish and Game. Armed and Fabulous, we're going to learn about our guns. We're going to learn how to handle them. If you already know, come down and join us anyway and have some fun. It'll be from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock in the afternoon at the Londonderry Fish and Game, July 14th. So, you know, Second Amendment, here we are.
Great job.
Thanks.
Something to say about liberty with armed women, that's for sure. Don't let the liberals hear about that. Oh my goodness. And especially if you stay at home and you're armed. Let's just start that war. That would be a great war, though, wouldn't we? We'd know who would win. That would be the war we'd want. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of the show. Please don't forget to visit the booth. Don't run off. Stay around. But we want to go ahead and introduce our next speaker. There's a lot to be said about this next speaker. A lot of you don't know, I'm on the radio now, but I wasn't on the radio by myself. This next gentleman and I did a show together. And I was convinced at that time that somehow the guest we kept bringing on and on and on convinced him to run for governor. But it really wasn't that at all. I think eventually he was going to run for governor or something. And the interesting thing about this next person, we've said live free or die over and over again, haven't we, today? And it's a good thing to remind ourselves. But John Stark actually said something much better when he was at the Battle of Bennington, and I'm going to paraphrase. He was standing up on the berm with all the Green Mountain boys. And on the other side, the British had hired a bunch of Hessians, and they were over there, and they were charged. They outnumbered the New Hampshire guys by quite a bit. And he stood up on that berm, and he pulled out his sword, and he said, "There they are, boys. We stop them here tonight, or Molly Stark sleeps a widow." Imagine that. Imagine those guys in the trenches just thinking to themselves, oh my goodness. Well, guess what? John Stark lives today in all of us, and John Stark lives most in this next speaker. When I first heard Jack speak, when I first spoke to him, I said, there's a brother I've been missing my whole life. There's a man who understands what John Stark meant when he stood up on that berm and held that sword up. Jack does it. And we don't thank him enough. He's a humble person. He puts things up on his sign at a cost to his business sometimes. He goes out there when we ask him to do things. And sometimes, sadly, those who have lost sight of what we're really fighting for attack him. I say to you today, I stand with this man. Not just because his name is Jack. I stand with this man, as we all do, because he stands with us. he never leaves us alone. And that's a good thing. But he's always the first one out of the trench and always the first one in, and he's always the first person that sees liberty is falling and says, what are we going to do? He's always the person that stands on the berm, raises the sword, and says, there they are, boys. We stop them here tonight or liberty dies. Jack is back, ladies and gentlemen, Jack Kimball.
You know, I got to get a laptop. I think Karen Testerman has it right, you know. Either that or I got to get, you know, the teleprompter like Barack Obama. The first thing I wanted to do is I want to thank all of you. It's been a long afternoon, I know, but we did get the weather. We were worried about that, so thank you all for coming out. 90% of success is showing up, and you're here today. My wife, Donna Marie, is here, and she's got this beautiful little baby, a brand new patriot. And the mom and dad, Brian and Nicole Urich, they're right here. They were with me from the get-go. They started the Raymond Tea Party, and they're here today with their newly born baby. My daughter Tammy is here, and my son-in-law Tate. They're right over there. Raise your hand. Stand up, Tate. And my granddaughters, Taya and Tiana. Stand up, stand up, stand up. Up, wave. I want to thank Jerry DeLamus. He's not here, but when I was asked to run or consider running for state GOP chair, that was an adventure. Jerry was the one who actually took the reins of this pack for me, and he did a marvelous job. And though he's not here, I know this is going to be on YouTube, so thank you, Jerry, for everything you did. You did a marvelous job. A couple other thank yous. You know, we have a committee that put this together today, and a very wonderful committee. And Diane Bitter, Jeff Chittister, Cliff Hurst. Thank you, Cliff, for the invocation. Thanks for being here. Mike and Mama Rogers, Nancy Warren Kindler, all of those folks that are here, Diane, Chuck Lothrop. They deserve a big round of applause for putting all this together. I do want to make an announcement. Anybody interested in running for state rep, we need more candidates. It's a serious issue. Please call, and it's Bob Mead at the State House. His phone number is 497-2068. Or you can talk to the state reps that are here today. They'll help you out. We need good, strong, conservative candidates, just like we did in 2010. Granite State Patriots Liberty PAC. We have an expanded mission, and it's an important mission. We are the patriots of today. It is critically important that we step up into the breach and stop the scourge that is Obama. We are responsible for the saving of our republic. We need to be visible. I was asked many, many times during the primary by liberal press, every one of them. I don't know why Fox didn't call me, but all the calls I got were from liberal press members. And they were saying, Mr. Kimball, where's the Tea Party? What's wrong? They've gone away. And I said, gone away? I said, you folks have no idea what you're talking about. I see what we were doing as we were getting involved. We ran for office, some of us. Some of us got elected. Those of us that didn't, backed good conservative candidates, we became the foot soldiers to make sure they did get elected. And in 2010, you saw those results. 298 of the 400 state reps became Republican. 298. 19 of the 24 state senators, Republican. And all 5 executive councils. The only thing we didn't get was the governorship, and we're going to get that this time. You know, folks, the one thing I say, and I say it often, is this. We are all Americans. We need to be Americans before we're anything else. Right. And being Americans has to have a renewed meaning. It has to mean that we believe in our Constitution, that we believe in our republic. We believe in free markets, capitalism. We believe those things. We believe in family values. What has happened? What has happened to us? All of you here today, I know, agree with those things, and all of you have to be leaders. People often say to me, Jack, we're losing the battle at the local level, and they're right. We're losing the battle in the school boards and the selectmen. We're losing the battle at city council levels and aldermanic levels. Don't look for somebody else to run. You run. You do it. Then things will change. Nicole did it. Nicole ran for the school board and she won. Believe me, you can do it. They were trying to compare the Occupy Wall Street movement with the Tea Party. Nothing could be so polarized. You see, we are about restoring our republic. The Occupy Wall Street folks are about destroying our republic.
Right.
Those folks are about socialism, communism. They are anti-capitalists. And if you've paid any attention at all, watch the YouTube videos and take a look at what's walking down the street. These folks proudly carrying the hammer and the sickle.
Oh, yeah.
You got the SEIU union folks all being merged together and blended into this movement, which Barack Obama, by the way, fully supports. What's that tell you? Now, the Tea Party, of course, he excoriates. The Tea Party, the liberty-loving folks that understand what he is doing to this country. The Supreme Court has a huge decision to make, and we all know they've already made it, we just don't know what it is. But based upon the testimony I heard, didn't go all that well for Mr. Obama. We'll see. But this is something that I consider to be a black and white issue. You see, I am of the belief that the decision from the Supreme Court should be 9-0. That's what it should be. Not naive. It won't be. But it should be. We have politicized even our Supreme Court. Those folks should be all about the Constitution and preserving our republic, and not about their parties and party affiliations and owing favors. But I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful that minimum 5-4, I'd like to see 6-3. That would at least make a statement. Ladies and gentlemen, the world is a dangerous, dangerous place right now. I think the most dangerous, certainly, that I have seen in my lifetime. We got Iran with nuclear aspirations, and you see what's going on with them. We have a president that we already now know his administration leaked information about a potential attack coming from Azerbaijan by Israel. He let the word out. Why? Well, he can't have that happen before the election, can he? Think about that for a minute. Our own administration. We got North Korea, already a nuclear power, tried to launch another missile. Well, that didn't work out too well, so we can keep hoping that they'll keep failing. But sooner or later, they're going to succeed. And they're getting help from who? Iran. Russia. Russia's flexing its muscles again, folks. You have mass troops on the border of Iran trying to ward off a potential attack from Israel, or for that matter, us. Although I have no faith at all in this current administration's support of Israel. But I can tell you this pack will support Israel. Wholeheartedly, we will stand behind them. China. China probably owns more of us than we do. They're building their military at an accelerated rate. You already heard that they now have more submarines than we do. I talked to a Navy chief, a submariner, the year before last, and I asked him personally, what's his greatest fear? And he told me, China, the Chinese submarine service. Their subs are extremely quiet. They're very hard to track. It doesn't bode well for us. It doesn't bode well. And what do? Barack Obama, now we got probably a $500 billion cut in our military. I'm a peace greeter. I go and greet the troops, and a lot of the troops that are coming back are guard units, National Guard folks from all over the country. We have stretched what is the greatest military we've ever had to the thinnest possible rope. Many of those young soldiers have been over to Afghanistan or Iraq 6 and 7 times. What do we want to ask of them? How much more can they do? You're seeing some of what the results are with the breakdown of some of the things that have happened. These are good people, but everyone has their limit. I'm a little angry, by the way, at the Los Angeles Times. 2-year-old photograph that they put out does nothing but hurt our military and certainly doesn't help the folks that are still in harm's way. It's a disgrace. They deserve better. Muslim Brotherhood, Middle East. How's that all working out for Barack Obama? Pretty good as far as he's concerned. Now the Muslim Brotherhood controls Libya, Egypt, probably soon to be Syria. We've got a lot to worry about. We also know that nuclear proliferation, if Iran gets a nuke, hey, they don't have to launch a missile. They only have to hand it off to somebody and they can deliver it here by themselves. It's a dangerous, dangerous place. Mexico. Now, those of you who have not seen the movie Act of Valor have to see the movie. The Navy SEALs are the stars of that movie. They don't have to act. They don't have to act at all. You're going to see something phenomenal when you see that movie. But the other thing you're going to see, because it's based on actual missions, is something that's going to give you a chilling reaction. And it's about what's coming over our borders from Mexico. And what they interdicted in the movie. I won't give it away. But they couldn't interdict everything. We know that things are coming across the border. We know terrorists are coming across our border. And what happens when the states like Arizona or North Carolina or other border states try to enforce their immigration laws? Eric Holder files suit against our own states to stop it. What madness? Are you serious? This is what's going on in our country. Our federal government is suing our states to stop them from enforcing the laws that the federal government's supposed to be enforcing in the first place. Tyranny. It is tyranny. We're turning over our sovereignty to the United Nations. I am convinced that the United Nations treaty that Hillary Clinton is so anxious to sign, that's going to turn over our sovereignty and allow them to come for our guns. Believe me, try it. Try it. This is the most divisive president in my lifetime. He attacks success. He attacks it, and he rewards failure with the bailouts. If you are a business person and you are losing hundreds of millions of dollars or billions, hey, you know what? You deserve to fail. Bankruptcy works. Free markets work. You file bankruptcy, and your competitors will grab what's good, and what's bad, well, nobody's going to want it anyway. But it happens quickly, it happens cleanly, and that's just the way it is. Some people certainly get hurt, but it happens so quickly, we recover far more quickly. We would have been out of this recession had we let the free markets take control instead of having the government interject itself.
That's right.
Every White House appointment has been radical. This man has revealed himself like no one else. He didn't get vetted before his last election, but by God, he's going to get vetted this time. We're going to reveal all of these selections. He has so many czars, I have lost track. But what we truly have is a government outside our government. And they are controlling what's going on. He rewards unions. Yeah, GM, just give it to them. As long as they can continue to contribute to his campaign coffers. And by the way, it's just recycled stimulus money. That's what's going on here. He blames virtually everyone else for his failures. He takes no responsibility whatsoever for anything that has gone wrong in this country. He's actually making friends with our enemies and making enemies of our friends.
Right.
I have never seen this before. He's abandoning our allies. like Israel, shreds our Constitution. He doesn't have a foreign policy. It simply doesn't exist. I'll say it out loud. I'm not running for anything.
That's right.
This man is a Marxist ideologue. That's what he is, and he intends to bring this country to its knees.
No more Obama! Down with Comrade Obama, the destroyer!
You know, one of my favorite people is Ronald Reagan. And what I'm going to attempt to do, because I think it's appropriate, it's only 3 minutes, is to give one of the famous speeches he gave when we're in the middle of the Cold War. And I want you to pay attention. I want you to see if it's apropos today. See if it applies in any way to what's happening in our country. It's titled, It's Time to Fight. Let's set the record straight. There is no argument over the choice between peace and war, but there's only one guaranteed way you can have peace, and you can have it in a second. Surrender. Admittedly, there is a risk in any course we follow other than this, but every lesson in history tells us that the greater risk lies in appeasement. And this is the specter of our well-meaning liberal friends refuse to face, that their policy of accommodation is appeasement, and it gives no choice between peace and war, only between fight and surrender. If we continue to accommodate, continue to back and retreat, eventually we have to face the final demand, the ultimatum. And then what? When Nikita Khrushchev has told his people he knows what our answer will be, he has told them that we're retreating under the pressure of the Cold War. And someday, when the time comes to deliver the ultimatum, our surrender will be voluntary, because by that time, we will have weakened from within spiritually, morally, and economically. He believes this because from our side he has heard voices pleading for peace at any price, or better read than dead. As one commentator put it, he would rather live on his knees than die on his feet. And therein lies the road to war, because those voices don't speak for the rest of us. You and I know, we do not believe that life is so dear and peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery. If nothing in life is worth dying for, when did this begin? Just in the face of this enemy? Or should Moses have told the children of Israel to live in slavery under the Pharaohs? Should Christ have refused the cross? Should the patriots at Concord Bridge have thrown down their guns and refused to fire the shot heard round the world? The martyrs of history were not fools, and our honored dead who gave their lives to stop the advance of Nazis didn't die in vain. Where then is the road to peace? Well, it's a simple answer after all. You and I have the courage to say to our enemies, there is a price we will not pay. There is a point beyond which they must not advance. Winston Churchill said that the destiny of man is not measured by material computation. When great forces are on the same move in the world, we learn we are spirits, not animals. And he said, there is something going on in time and space and beyond time and space, which, whether they like it or not, spells duty. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We will preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we will sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness. That is chilling. You know why? Because what he was talking about at that time was the potential conflict between us and the USSR. What he was talking about was peace through strength.
Right.
And that's exactly what that president did. And he collapsed the Soviet Union completely. But now look at what happened. We, you and I, have kept our eye off the ball for far too long. We have let in the front door what this president did so much to stop. He's in the White House, along with all of his cronies. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no tomorrow. We, all of us, have to come out in a tsunami of voters, just like we did in 2010. We have to do it again in 2012, and we have to send Barack Obama packing. Lastly, let's agree that Washington, D.C. is a mess. It's going to take a long time, even if we do elect a Republican president. And by the way, I don't know about you, but I will enthusiastically support whoever the nominee is because the alternative is unacceptable. I believe, and I mean this, that we will take our country back through the states. We can get our arms around the states, and we need governors in our states that are not afraid to push back against the ever-encroaching federal government and say no more. We won't do what you're asking us to do. It's unconstitutional. Forget about it. And as far as I'm concerned, Ovide Lamontagne is the man I endorse, but regardless, whoever we elect has to be a Republican that gets to the corner office in the state of New Hampshire, and we have to maintain control of the House and the Senate. I ask all of you today, all of you, to please sign up if you haven't. Join and be a patriot. Wear proudly the pin, I am a patriot. We are going to push this from now on. Become patriots, stay active, talk to your foes. The next time we have an event, I want to see 1,000 people here. Please spread the word. Please don't give up. We have a fight to win, and we damn sure are going to do it.